So with that, I've given you the overview of the technology, told you a little bit about blueprints. You're now the architect, right? And I'm going to turn it over to Eunice, who's going to give you a little bit more about how she gets all these things done. Eunice?
Thank you. Just before I get started, I'd like to know how many of you do use IBM Marketing Cloud currently? Awesome! I have never seen that before. Usually on these tracks, it's a lot of people that don't have any idea what we're talking about. So I'm glad to know that this is relevant to all of you, and thank you for joining us. So you wouldn't begin to build a house without a plan, right? You're not going to just go out and grab a bunch of drywall and some pipes and some wiring and just slap it all together and hope that it stands when a hurricane rushes through Tampa next fall, right? So you've got to think of programs automation the same exact way. You have to sit down and think about what you want to do and plan out everything that you want every contact to go ahead and experience as they're running through. What I see a lot, though, is that people try to use programs to solve all of their organizational goals in one program. It's not a skyscraper. We don't have to make the program do everything that we want it to do. We can actually look a little bit more short-sightedly, and instead of saying we want to have a 50% return on our investment and we want to grow our portfolio by X number of dollars over the next year, you can look back and say, I want every contact that's in this program to update their mailing address. I want everyone that's in this program to register for my event and attend it next week. I want everyone in this program to enroll for school. So as you start to think of those, you can start to put those plans together. And as Diane mentioned, our team has started to use Journey Designer. This was probably one of my favorite features that came out of Amplify last year because our team is remote. We don't have everyone in our Denver office. We've got some people in Iowa, we've got some people in the Bahamas, we've got some people in London. And so this allows us to collaborate effectively across all of those miles and put everything together. And as we talk, we can start to identify which of these interactions we'd like to use. So we can say, oh, I want to send an email to this group, and after that, I want to follow up with a postcard. As I mentioned, we do a lot of direct mail, so usually we've got that worked in somewhere. I can also have my telesales team put that, get that in there. And what we start to think about once we start to lay everything out is we can really look at where our gaps are. As Diane mentioned, we want to make sure that we're accounting for if someone does exactly what we want them to do, if someone doesn't do any of what we want them to do, and then all the people in between that maybe kind of sort of did a little bit of what we wanted them to do, but not quite. We need to make sure we're adjusting that messaging so that it's effective for everyone at the point in the cycle that they're at. So again, let's not overthink things. Let's not build a skyscraper here. We can start with a tiny house. Regardless of how complex or how simple your program is, it's going to be the same process. You're going to identify what you're trying to accomplish, figure out what your step resources are or your building materials, figure out what actions you need or your tools, and you can start to put that together. Once you have those plans laid, you can start to build that foundation that Diane talked about. And again, that's going to be your data source. You're going to really look at your database and start to query it out. I'm sure that since most of you are using Marketing Cloud, this looks really familiar, but this is the query builder that is in the database level. And my favorite thing about Marketing Cloud is that anywhere that you see a query, whether it's a rule builder within a program, whether it's defining rules or actions on a step resource or building a query, that idea is the same, that concept is the same, and you don't have to relearn something new to use a different part of the program. And so I've gone ahead and built this query where I've said, these are all the records that I really want in this particular program. I've got 330,000 contacts in here. I don't need to send emails. I don't need to send every single person through that nurture program. I just want these ones that have been active in the last 60 days. And so I can go ahead and build these with either profile information, which all three of these are. You can see this little icon, it looks like a contact thing. If I wanted to adjust behaviors Say they filled out an RFI form, I can use custom event web tracking as one of my behaviors that triggers them to get in this program. If I have this tied to CRM, perhaps they were part of a CRM campaign, and I would like to go ahead and enter them into the program. Or the one that we use a lot with our university clients is relational tables. We actually have a third-party college application program that is tied to IBM Marketing Cloud through relational table, and so that updates different flags that let us know if a student started an application but didn't finish it, so we can trigger reminder emails to them to say, hey, you know that app you started? Let's go finish it and go to college. So if your strategy is the foundation, then you can think of your decision points as the plumbing, and that's what moves all of your contacts through the program. So I know that whenever I have a house party, it never fails. Everyone always migrates into the kitchen. Do you guys have that same issue? It doesn't matter what you do. But I started to think about this, and if you think about your beer and your food as your decision points, if I want to get people into different parts of the house, I'm going to put those decision points maybe out on the back deck, or in the kitchen, or in the living room. And you'll notice that depending on how people are feeling, the hungry ones are going to go for the food, the thirsty ones are going to go for the beer, but I'm putting those decision points in different places so that they can move through my program the way that I want them to. They can make new friends and move on. So this should look familiar because this is the programs canvas that Diane showed you, and you'll see it again later, but the same thing goes here. That query that I started with, I got everyone entered into this program, so they're going to come in, and the first thing that they're going to get is that nurture email. But then I happen to know that I've got some people that are entered into my database that have already received this other email because they were part of a different campaign. Now, I don't want to send the same email to the same group of people twice in a row, so I've gone ahead and put a decision point in here that is going to allow me to route these contacts down to this next one, and they can skip this second step and move right on to the third. And as Diane had mentioned, you can add your update profile, and so what I've done here is I've put a profile note, the updates, after every single email is sent, after every single touch point is sent, to say that the last mail piece they received was whatever it was. And that helps us to track conversions, and so we're able to see I have a whole bunch of people that convert after they get the last chance email, or I have a whole bunch of people convert after I send them the email about an upcoming event, or I have nobody converting after the president sends them a personal message. I can either change where I'm sending that, or I can just omit it completely. And the query builder for decision points is exactly the same. One of the things that's a little known tip or trick is that sometimes you have people in programs that have qualified themselves out of the program, and there's no need to continue to send them emails. It's completely irrelevant at this point to send someone who is engaged, who is a hot lead through a nurture program, because they're already engaged. So what I can do is, if it's up on this gray bar, so you have your program level and your track level, and then your decision points are the ones in the middle, I can qualify those people out of the program at any point. And so I can say, okay, you did what I wanted you did what I wanted you to do, so I'm going to exit you out of this program. When I put it up on the program level like that, it's listening all the way around the program, and so at any point that they hit the criteria to no longer qualify for my program, I can exit them out and move them into something more relevant. So the next thing that's important to do is test. At DMX Engage, we actually have Extreme QC trademarked because we test everything all the time. And I have learned, my dad's an electrician, and he always tells me these stories of getting lit up at work when they're testing stuff. And that's not the best way to go about figuring out if something works. And let me tell you, I've been the one that's made the mistake of accidentally sending an email out to a whole bunch of students that shouldn't have received it. And that's also not the best way to figure out that something's working. So you want to test it, and as Diane said, that you can put yourself into a test program. We attach a test query right to that program and make sure that it's running the way that we think that it's running. We actually use a programs worksheet and have somebody else check our queries and our logic to make sure that it's sound. We've had lots of fights at the whiteboard as to whether or not it should be and or. But it really allows us to go through and think about, is this program functioning the way that I expect it to? And I found the hard way that there are a lot of times when you think you've built a program and it's going to function exactly the way you want it to, and it doesn't quite function the way that you want it to. And so I've put in a lot of really angry support tickets and said, programs are broken, fix it! And the support tech will get on the line with me and say, your program is doing exactly what you told it to do. So we've learned the hard way, test it, make sure it's running the way you expect it to, and then move on. But testing doesn't just end at functionality. A lot of you may or may not know that A/B testing is something that's not quite available as in programs, but that doesn't mean that you can't use programs to A/B test. With this client, Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design, we